Oh, this is one of my favorite jams from back in the day, Stevie Wonder. Your friendly announcer. Oh, you're a friendly announcer, right? I just want us to throw some serious news out. This is Black History Month, but we call it Black Future Month because we're all about the future. But you gotta know your history in order to make it to the future.
That's right.
Because if you don't know your history,
there is no
you're
future.
subject to repeat your history. And I think African American people or black people have been, you know, what we call hogwashed. You know, I remember the brother said, we've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray. And we're going to talk about it right now. Just to open up, this is going to be what we call our signature Black Future Month program, okay? We're going to talk about some issues because, you know, right now it is the 11th day of Black Future Month. That's what we call it, Black Future Month. And I just want to give you an update because most people don't even know who started Black History Week. It was Black History Week first before it became Black History Month. And I'm going to tell you why this is so significant is because sometimes we get swayed and we lose our purpose and our mission. So usually from the Albany Community Builders, it's my job to make sure they stay on the mission and goal and purpose. So I'm going to do that today. Make sure we stay on point. Now, Black History Month was started in 1926 by historian Carter G. Woodson. But I want to let you know what started, what happened before all that happened. He was it was celebrated in 1940. You know, because he spoke at what we call a Black History Week. And in Chicago, there was a guy by the name of Frederick
Douglass.
No, not Frederick Douglass. I was waiting on you to say that.
Williams?
Harambe. Frederick Harambe. I had to take a little time to say that word. Harambe. In 1960, he started celebrating the Black History Month. Because it was, you know, it was actually Black History Week, and he didn't have enough time to teach the history of black people. Now let's go a little bit deeper in that. Now in the summer of 1915 in Chicago, Carter G. Woodson, he traveled to Detroit to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the emancipation of slavery. And the reason that it's in February, I bet you don't know. I bet very few people know, is because actually Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass's birthday is in February. Abraham is on the 12th, Frederick Douglass is on the 14th. As a matter of fact, tomorrow will be Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And the reason Abraham Lincoln was so significant is because he was the president that signed the Emancipation. Now, if you take 5 coins from a penny, a nickel, a dime, and a quarter, and a lot of people said that Abraham Lincoln was actually a black man. Okay, if you see all the other coins are turned to the right, Abraham Lincoln's the only one turned to the left. He's on a penny. Okay, just want to throw that out. And Frederick Douglass, of course, a lot of young people. Now, CJ, let me ask you a question. Come over to the mic if you can. Who is Frederick Douglass and what did he do? Pull up your microphone. Talk to me, young man. See that this just proved.
Yeah.
Okay, who is Frederick Douglass?
Let me look it up.
Okay. He's looking on his Googling. See that? That just proves that it's a big need. Now, I'm going to go a little bit further in this. Now, when he did this speech in 1915 to celebrate the emancipation of slavery, thousands came. There was exhibits and all that kind of stuff. And from that point on, he said it was very important for African Americans to know their history so that they can grow into a better expansion of doing for self, being self-sufficient. So he decided to organize a group called to promote scientific study and black life. And the name of that group was called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. It was formed, it was called the ASNLH. Now, in 1916, there was he published what's called the Negro Journal in 1916. In 1920, he urged researchers to share his findings because he had begun to find so many things about African Americans, or what we call black people, that black people did not know. So what happened, most of the intellectuals, they got busy. in the early 20s. And they began to do research, and they brought about pictures and essays and all this kind of stuff to celebrate the history of the accomplishments of some of the black people that were not in history books. Because you got to realize, in those days, we were not a part of what we call the social fabric of America. We was considered 3/5 of man, so we were considered, but at that same time, this is the reason that HBCUs were established. Come on now, this thing got a big connection, and it's a connection to why we act the way we act today, and why we shun our own history.
Hey, also,
go ahead.
Also, I just researched it real quick, and you know,
it's a serious, man.
He was the first African American citizen to hold a high U.S. government position.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
I just read his.
Oh, who was that?
Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass.
He was the first African American to have a high.
And what was that? What was that? Okay, so since you're Googling.
Yeah, I'm just going through it.
Okay, going through it, Googling, turning pages, flipping, jumping, moving around. And while you're going through it, I want to also add that members of the Omega Psi Phi, I got to show them love. Because Hampton University, you know, one of the earlier HBCUs, some members of the Omega Psi Phi, they decided in 1925 to popularize their findings because they began to do research. And there was so much information that was irrelevant, that was out there, that people did not know. So the intellectuals, they did a great thing, man. They stepped out there and they began to pull up pictures and this and that and bring in all of this different information that was really what we might call thrown away history. You got to realize since 1863, the emancipation, some people were not even emancipated. Here in Southwest Georgia, they waited another almost 20 years, you know, before Juneteenth, because the what they call the Albany Guard, they stopped the carpetbaggers from coming down up north, up north to give us this information that we have been emancipated.
Wow. And
it's really sickening, you know, considering how we respond right now. And that's why most people don't even want to celebrate their history, because they don't know their history. You can't celebrate what you don't know. And I just want to take it just a little bit further, just give the love to the Q brothers. They got together and they decided that they was gonna try to inspire people to do a greater work. See, that's why we're not inspired right now. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't know. Our people are destroyed for a lack of Cadillacs.
Knowledge.
Okay. But because we don't have this knowledge, and then that makes us want to be other than ourselves.
Right.
You know, so we always are proud of others, but we have no what you call dignity and pride. Now, I'm going to go a little bit further. Actually, after that, they did a press release. And Carter G. Woodson in 1925, his press release was that from that day forward, we were going to start what we call Negro History Week. Only 1 week. But a week was not enough time, because they were pulling up so much information that needed to be a part of history. Now, guess what? When we look at our history, it's very vague. And if you understand, you know, you can get a book or whatever. Throughout the whole school curriculum, it would take an act of Congress to actually have what we call true black studies. You know, they were going on a little bit in some of the HBCUs, but right now it's spiraled so bad because people don't have the knowledge of self and don't want the knowledge of self. People think they can be a speaker just because they read something or they put on an African garb. But usually those people are so disconnected. And I'll tell you why a little bit later. Now, I got to go on with this. Negro History Week was started that following February after a press release. And thousands of people came to Chicago to celebrate the emancipation of slavery during the month of February, during the birthday of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Now, just add this last part. At that time, black people were Republicans.
Yeah.
And we celebrated Lincoln's birthday because we was a part of the Republic. We got to, man, we need knowledge, huh? And it was a part of the emancipation since 1890. They said thousands came, racial pride and consciousness expanded. What are we lacking? Okay, go a little further. The middle class embraced the literature, the culture, and groups sprang up all over America, creating their own history books. Where might they be? Question. Study material, pictures. There was an organization called the ASNLH. It was called the Association of Study of Negro Life and History. It was formed at the HBCUs. Wow, now you see why. Now we want to give them away. After all we've done. We should be building on that legacy, but yet we're tearing it down and allowing others to tear down this legacy. Now, nobody else's history get torn down. In 1960, Frederick, I have a problem with his last name, but he was a great mathematician back in ancient Egypt, and his name is Hammurabi. I got to get it right. But he decided in 1960 that a week was not long enough. So they actually began to proclaim Black History Month, and eventually we kept pushing, so many others who stepped in during the 60s. But after the 60s and 70s, we just kind of lost our identity. We just faded on into oblivion, as we are today, in oblivion. And the last thing I want to say, during Black History Month, you know, if you need a speaker, call Gil, because I'm not going to just give you Negro history. I'm going to give you some Black history.
How can we reach
It's a difference. The number to call is, you can call the station, 434-1010. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm going up the way, near Atlanta. I have to go way to Atlanta when I'm right here in Southwest Georgia with all this information. You know what I'm saying? But see, some people, guess who they want? They want intellectuals that are not even connected to a struggle. You know, people that, I look at some of the stuff and people go and get, you know, they don't get people that are, back in the days you had the likes of Marcus Garvey, Nat Turner. You had the likes of Denmark Vesey. You had the likes of Malcolm X, you know. You had the likes of Huey P. Newman. People that was going to give you that wisdom from a whole nother perspective, you know, not from the perspective that's been watered down. And that's a big problem. I want to say this before we close on that, because it is Black Future Month. But you got to know your history in order to have the proper. Go ahead.
Last fact I just researched about Frederick Douglass. You know, he was the first African American nominated for the vice president of the United States. It was when Victoria Woodhull, Woodhull, I don't know how to pronounce that. Woodhull. And was running mate for the Equal Rights Party in 1872.
Now look how he had to Google that. We're gonna take a caller, because off the top of our dome we don't know this stuff. And my question is, why don't we know it? Because we don't want to know. People don't want to know. Good evening. How you doing, caller? How you doing, Mr. Cruz? It's good to hear from you, Mr. Cruz. How you been feeling? Okay, go right ahead. Go ahead. Can you turn down your radio in the background? I think that's getting us. Go ahead. You're good. Okay, good. That's right.
And the only way you can get the black men up in that war, you have to free them from the slavery.
Okay.
And that's the reason why he wrote that. It was in order for the black men to be able to fight that war.
That's right. You're so right. Now.
They went on, the black man had his own army called the Buffalo Soldiers.
That's right, sir. That's right. That's right. Now, that's right. Now let me add something to that, Mr. Cruz. You know, you know, the whole purpose was economic purposes because they was losing a lot of money. You know, the North and the South was fighting and they was losing a lot of money. So economically, it was the sound thing to do to free the slaves because it was good economics at that time. And I remember something that Lincoln said back in the day when they said, "Are you going to free the slaves?" He said, "I'm going to have to." They said, "Are they going to be equal like us?" Then he said, "Well, they'll be equal under the law." And then that's when they came out what we call the black codes or the peonage laws. You know, and at that time where you couldn't walk on certain sides of the street, you couldn't laugh out loud, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that.
I remember some of that went on back there. I remember we had a black doctor, two black hospitals in Bainbridge.
Go ahead.
And two black hospitals.
Two black hospitals, and today we don't have one.
We had two, one named Dr. Griffin, one named Dr. Lord.
Look at this, look at this.
And we had a black dentist.
Yes, sir.
We had dentistry on there, and we had a black school named Dr. WUTU.
That's right.
Still high school.
And right here in Southwest Georgia, a lot of people don't remember the Camilla Massacre and some of the things that went on right here in Southwest Georgia. In Albany, Georgia, it was called the Egypt of the Confederacy, and it was one of the richest slave kingdoms the modern world never ever knew. And I can show you facts. I can show it to you. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was serious. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's so important. See, that's the purpose of the Black History Month. Not for us just to walk around and dashiki, or for us to talk about Negroes that have. Wait, let me stop. I got the rest. Negro history. but I appreciate your call, Mr. Cruz, all the time. Every time you call, you always drop something good on them.
Yeah, see, a lot of things that up here today, we going through some things right now. And like you come out the South and the North. That's right. Like you got the lottery and all that stuff going on and everything. And being denied.
That's right.
The cost of living and everything.
Do you realize we're being lorded over?
Yeah,
and if you understand what I'm saying, people are lording over us, and we're allowing this to happen. I'm just to the point this morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Cruz, for calling.
Yeah, but you know, I wonder who one man. I had to work for $3 a day, so I can't live that down.
Ooh, boy, $3, $3 a day. And then I even heard, I know you're a war vet, you've been in the war. I heard even my grandfather used to tell us how there was just so much systematic discrimination in the war where some of the soldiers would kill some of the brothers just if they got an opportunity. It's so sickening. I mean, we got to break it out. I'm talking to you, man. Yes, sir. $41 a month. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Got to keep it moving. Be blessed. God bless you. Thank you for calling. 883, that's Mr. Cruz. He always on point. My last thing is our challenge is today. I wrote a little note and say our challenge is to reverse or neutralize or cleanse our perception of this Eurocentric divinity. Because for some reason, we tend to think that, you know, all divinity is, and that's why we continue this kind of mindset. And the psychological sublime influence is persuasive and pervasive, and it impedes our social organization and our scholarly efforts. That's why we can't come together, is because we are thinking from a polluted mind. I just got to give it to you this morning. And we got, in order for us to facilitate our own interests, our own historical interests, then we have to go through a process to become self-sufficient so that we can, first of all, be members of the human family, and second of all, be members of what we call our own group. Because we are the only group that's not a group, huh? Okay, come on. I can go a little bit deeper. I'm going to leave it right there. God bless you. Peace and blessing. We're going to take a break and we'll be back. Gary,
the
Chris,
Powerhouze.
in the house.